We are doing this spring. Thanks for hitting record, Jamie. I'll just repeat what I just said just for the sake of the recording. This is our third out of six of the Lit Spotlight sessions for this spring 2026 semester, I guess we'll call it. We will be doing these six spotlight sessions, and then we're going to be following that up with an event in May, which I'll tell you about in just a second. So I was just going to run through a couple of slides. Of course, you're all here today because you're here to listen to Jason Haag and Rob Chadwick from Veracity talk to us about delegates and how to play xAPI content and free your data. So we'll get to that in just a moment, I promise. I just want to share a couple of other things with you. So, as I said, this was the third out of six. We have three more Lit Spotlight sessions coming up. We have Julian Davis next week. And I just want to also point out that next Thursday and the following on the 2nd and 9th, we will be shifting our time to the afternoon because both Julian and Jacinta are on the other side of the world from us in Australia and New Zealand. So we're gonna make sure that they don't have to get up at 2 a.m. to join us for those sessions. So we're excited for those. And then we'll be wrapping up our spotlight sessions with Vince Hahn from Mobile Coach. So lots of more good sessions coming your way. If you haven't registered, you do have to register for each session separately. So if you haven't done that yet, you can find links for that in the Lit library. All the sessions are posted there ahead of time with descriptions about what will be covered. And then, but if you're also not on our mailing list, you can get on that if you go to torrancelearning.com/lit. So, the thing that I alluded to at the end in May of these spotlight sessions, we're going to be doing an in-person event. If you happen to be in the Southeast Michigan area, and I think actually now we do have an official location for our event, we will be at the School of Education for the University of Michigan. So we will be in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is where Torrance Learning is located. So we're excited to be bringing that to you. You have just a few more days for our early bird pricing. It's available through March 31st. So if you're in the area, we would love to have you there. We do have Jason is actually going to be coming up for that event, and Hytham, who is also on the call today, he's going to be doing one of the sessions as well. So speaking of sessions that we're going to have at that event, this is our lineup as of today, although this is still, there may be a couple more that are coming onto the docket for This Party is Lit. So we have a lot of stuff around AI. We've got some xAPI. We've got just lots of great learning, innovation, and technology sessions coming your way. And a little bit of a break in the middle of the day, too. We've got Neil Rowland, who's going to be playing a game with us. It's actually a board game that is about the agile mindset. So we're super excited to bring all of this to you all in May 8th. Full day of events there. And then last but not least, I just want to make sure that you have find your way to all the places to stay connected with us. So there's the Lit library where you can catch up on any past spotlights that we've done. We did a Lit Labs last fall, which was a fun kind of get in there and do a project type of an experience, hackathon-like, and we're hoping to do more of those in the future. And you can find all of that in the Lit library. That's the URL for that there. We also do have an email address that you can reach out to us at if you need to. So lit@torrancelearning.com. So without further ado, I will now hand it over to Jason and Rob to take it away. And I will stop sharing.
Excellent. Do I need to reshare my screen?
I think you do, Jason. Sorry about that.
Okay. No worries. Thought I was already sharing it. Here we go. All right. Screen one. Can you see it okay?
It is. Yep. There we go.
Okay. Well, thank you, Meg, for the introduction. And, I just want to say thank you to Torrance Learning again for hosting the Lit series for the community. It's such a valuable resource. And we're really thrilled to see this type of, cohort activity spark back up in the L&D community. I've had many people ask, hey, what happened to the xAPI cohort in the past year or so? So I've been trying to push them to Lit, and I'm really excited to see it extend in scope beyond just xAPI topics, honestly, with all the excitement and potential with AI these days. However, we're going to talk about xAPI today. Most importantly, some problems people are having with xAPI and their LMS. And while this topic isn't specific to AI, getting xAPI to work in your ecosystem is very important for learning analytics and AI tools. They really like structured data like xAPI. So thanks again. We're honored to be here, and we're really excited to share how you can play xAPI content in your LMS and help free your data. Let me go into the next slide and do some introductions here. So a little bit about Veracity. Rob and I co-founded Veracity with John Opoltrak and Tom Creighton while we were working together back at the ADL initiative back in 2016 is when we founded it. We started working at ADL in the early 2000s, around 2010 or so when xAPI started. It's when I went over there. Veracity will be turning 10 years old this year. So happy birthday to us. Just a little bit about our company. I won't bore you to death, but we basically provide software and services around learning and performance. We're really passionate about learning technologies and helping organizations implement xAPI to help prove content effectiveness and business impact. Really, that's it. We're most famously known for our learning record store, and that's available. More information at lrs.io. But we recently released a new product called Veracity Launch, which is both a lightweight kind of LMS or learning content portal, and also a content player for standards-based content such as SCORM, xAPI, and CMI5. So that's a little bit about the company there. I'm a consultant. Rob, you want to give a little brief introduction yourself and maybe mention a little bit
Yeah,
about LRS? And
yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
yep.
All right, great. Hi, everybody. I'm Rob. I am um, on camera for once, which is rare, but here we are. Um, yeah, hi. I'm one of the partners at Veracity. I'm sort of our technical lead, um, and I'm trying to be more visible. So now y'all know what I look like. Um, So yeah, Jason will talk a little bit about this, kind of in detail. We host, I don't know, something like 7,000 LRSs at LRS.io these days. It's been a fairly successful project for us. We have hundreds of enterprise and on-prem deployments as well. Something that comes up a lot is how do you get the data into an LRS? Like that's kind of our whole business, right? Is crunching the data once it's in the LRS and then getting the data to us is just a consistent difficulty for our users. So we have kind of split out this launch system into a kind of its own product that solves some of these problems. And as part of that, Veracity has a commitment to supporting the community in standards-based education. So we give away a lot of, I think, valuable freemium tier SaaS products. Same with this launch system. So that's kind of what we're going to be showing you today. I don't want to steal Jason's thunder, Jason. I'll let you run with it, but it'll be my
No.
turn in about 20 minutes.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Tom. I mean, Rob.
Yeah.
So to get things going, we have a few poll questions for you. To participate, just scan the QR code here on the screen with your mobile device, or you can also go to slido.com in a web browser and enter this code. It's 4547139. I'll wait a few seconds for everyone to log in and participate. So these results will come up live here and appear on the screen as we change the slides. I'll also have the code on here, but if you don't mind too, Meg, if you can put the link or code in the group chat. Again, just scan the QR code here on the screen, or with your mobile device, go to slido.com and any web browser and enter this code, 4547139. So the first question here we have is, which of these are part of your learning ecosystem today? LMS, learning content management system, content authoring tools like Storyline, Rise, Domino. Oh, wow. Also, we've got CMI5 content, xAPI content, or I'm not sure. Really interesting to see those results. Yes, not surprising that everybody has an LMS. Like seeing the xAPI content number going up and the LRS number going up. Excellent, excellent. Okay. Next poll question. Looks like those are just about done. I don't see them going to change a whole lot other from those numbers, but those are some pretty interesting stacks. Maybe we could share those out with the participants later on
Yeah,
too,
keep that.
Meg. Uh, Second question here. How confident are you that your LMS can properly support xAPI or CMI5 content? Really like to see how this one turns out because this is really the topic of our presentation here. Not very confident, not very confident. Wow. So there's probably some folks here that are doing
That's something working.
xAPI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not surprising to see not very confident. That is what we're seeing here. So, all right. And one last question here, just to spark some engagement with you all. Where does most of your valuable learning data end up? Locked in the LMS, spread across disconnected tools in an LRS, and reports that nobody trusts, or we're not collecting it yet? Locked in the LMS is the leader. That is not surprising here. And spread across disconnected tools. That is often the case as we become more data centric and we get more than just learning data. We get some HR data and other sources. We want to kind of mash that up, and the learning data is often disconnected and spread out, hard to get to. Excellent. So locked in the LMS, almost 60%. I think we're probably close to the end of that. So I'll wrap up the poll questions here. And let's take a quick look at the LMS landscape. So whether we're talking about a company using it for workplace training or a university or educational institution using it for formal learning, really the rise of the web-based LMS started back in the late 1990s and early 2000s as the internet and World Wide Web exploded. At that same time, delivery of CBTs and on CD-ROM moved to web delivery in the browser. Yeah, that sounds crazy, right? But courses, especially content developed in authorware, were often distributed on CDs. Add some comments here to the chat if you think you ever developed any learning content to run on CD-ROM. Be interesting to see some of the responses here, see if anybody's been around developing e-learning content since then. So Plateau and Blackboard were some of the earliest LMS platforms, with Moodle being the first widely used open source LMS back in 2002. The 2000s and 2010s had a ton of mergers and acquisitions, and all that's still kind of going on today. These, bigger LMSs are swallowing up the smaller ones, constantly changing landscape. And LMSs have also grown in terms of features, such as adding things like content authoring and assessment creation, assessment delivery, content management. You see a lot of them taking on LCMS functionality. Some are like both LCMSs and LMSs. Competency management, skills, badges, AI, and lots more. Like the features are never ending. And unfortunately, many of the LMSs have become these big monolithic platforms that are more focused on adding features and supporting new data standards like xAPI and APIs in general. So fun fact here, if you browse or search the e-learning industry's directory of LMS products using the URL at the top of the slide, you'll see there are currently 1,029 different LMS products listed. This is just one directory. There's probably lots of more LMSs out there. I know there's different directories, ATD, others have some too. I just picked this one randomly. So be interesting to know, are you using any of these? Feel free to comment and share in the chat what LMS you're using. And also comment if you've implemented an LRS to work with your LMS or not in your content. Also, e-learning technical specifications and standards, they started around the same timeline in the 90s through the 2010s. We had AICC, SCORM, and CMI5. These were all created to support courseware interoperability with the LMS, so that if you had to switch vendors and move later on to a different LMS, the investment in your courses would not be lost. This plug and play idea really was created to help you avoid vendor lock-in, because you can import those same courses into another LMS that still supports the standard. These all have similar data models too. They're all based on CMI, which is also known as course managed instruction. And those are intended for really the asynchronous kind of self-paced learning modality where a single learner experiences a course on their own, without an instructor. And like these first three specifications, xAPI was intentionally designed to work without an LMS. And it really allows you to track any type of experience. It was intended to track not just courses, but all types of learning. So xAPI in general is more focused on data interoperability, and the data model is also a little bit more open. So you can take your data with you and also use it in other LRSs or other business intelligence tools. And it's important to tell this story here before we set things up for Rob to do the demo and tell this history, because I think it reveals a lot about how we got here and why there are still some challenges today. In some cases, many LMS and authoring tool vendors added basic support for xAPI in the early tin can days before it became a mature standard, and they still haven't really improved upon much since then. Also, xAPI's general documentation doesn't tell you how to package and launch content in a standard way. It mostly addresses how the content or the learning record provider communicates and sends data to an LRS. So I think that's also, really one of the many reasons why it's not widely supported or it's inconsistently supported by some LMSs. However, CMI 5 does specify how to package and launch content in LMS, but it also hasn't been widely supported by LMSs either. And this is not an xAPI 101 presentation. Hopefully, most of you here have heard of xAPI and at least know generally what it's intended for. But for context, I'm going to roll back here and briefly summarize why it was created, kind of real high level, these three high level things. And there's a lot more requirements on what went into xAPI going back to like 2008. ADL worked with the Let's organization and then funded Rusticy software to go out and collect requirements from the whole community on kind of what they thought might be a SCORM 2.0 or success for that. And what they found were all of these requirements were kind of centered around people wanted to be able to track and do learning besides just courses in an LMS. So that was really the top drivers. And these are really the top drivers, I think, that were intended for, or why xAPI was created. One, to collect data, measure and evaluate all types of learning and performance, not just courses, mobile apps, performance support, videos, simulations, Internet of Things, sensors, and also like real world performance. To share learning data outside the LMS and be able to mash it up with other data sources for deeper analytics or business intelligence purposes. And then also another big driver was to provide a more modern yet simple and flexible approach than SCORM, and something that wasn't restricted to browsers or restricted to an LMS. And what is the current state and some of the top challenges that exist today with implementing xAPI, at least from Veracity's perspective? First of all, we hear this a lot of time for customers, but the LMS paradigm. Many organizations, they still treat the LMS as the center of the universe. They require all training and learning to kind of go through and content to be accessed in one centralized place. This could be for a number of reasons, maybe security, or maybe they want to, control the identity of the users going through one system through the LMS. But nonetheless, I think it's really forced a lot of people to figure out how they can try to put their content in an LMS. Another common challenge is that e-learning tools typically store the LRS credentials, the secret and the key in the published content package. This results in really poor security practices. If you think about it, you wouldn't put your username and password to log in to some other site or application inside of an HTML file and then upload it somewhere, would you? That's kind of what's going on here. The login and the password to store your xAPI data in the LRS, it's actually hard coded in the content. So this also quickly becomes a maintenance nightmare if you have to make any updates to your content or distribute it to more than one LRS. Many authoring tools publish the content as xAPI or tin can, as a tin can package currently, but there's really no formal standard on how to do that and how to package it, according to the xAPI specification. So many LMSs just continue to support SCORM packages by default. Another common challenge, some LMSs may claim to support xAPI, but they maybe have some ulterior motives. They don't really want you to collect data outside of the LMS. They don't want you to get it outside of their system. They want to kind of impose this vendor lock-in and keep you in the data silos. So they don't really provide an option to pull the data out or store it in an external LRS. And then another common challenge is content distribution. If you have content that must be delivered to more than one LMS or more than one place, you got to make a physical copy of your content. It's got to be duplicated and then imported in each of those systems. So you've got a lot of physical copies going around there. So what are some of your top challenges with your LMS, maybe your xAPI support, or your xAPI or CMI5 or any other learning technologies that you're currently working with now? Enter those in the chat, and we'll review those some here later when we go through some of the questions at the end of the demo. So while some LMSs do claim to support xAPI, you really need to verify and test this for yourself. If you dig a little deeper, you'll find that most of the data they provide is high level. It's things like page views, completions, and scores. Torrance Learning published this too recently, a couple years ago. They made a tool for you to test your LMS support of xAPI and CMI5. If the LMS doesn't have an LRS, then it likely stores that data directly in the LMS database and not in an LRS. And if they allow you to target an external LRS for storing your data, you need to make sure that it's the LRS that's you're using has passed the ADL conformance test suite. Otherwise, it likely doesn't fully support the standard. And from my recollection, only like 3 to 4 LMS companies actually have LRSs that pass that test according to the ADL conformance test suite. That test suite has over 1,300 tests that a LRS must pass to prove conformance with the standard. You can still access that site, the LRS test suite, and list is down as ADL went down recently, but you can still access that published list as of November 2025 if you want to kind of look at that for yourself to see which LRSs are up there. It's really important, I think. That's at webarchive.org. You can actually use this URL here in the slide to go back and see that there's snapshots. Web Archives, like a site that makes web snapshots of the entire web over time. So you can actually, site goes away, you can still go back and find old snapshots of it. Anyhow, from our experience, more than likely you have an LMS that doesn't fully support xAPI or has an LRS. So we created this Delegates tool for you all for this very reason. We've had a lot of customers over the years that have had created highly interactive, data-driven content only to find out they could not put it in their LMS as xAPI because the LMS didn't support it. So we created this free tool for you. It's at xapi.io. Rob's going to provide a demo here in a few minutes, but first I want to quickly highlight the big 3 problems it solves and explains how it works. So I discussed a few slides back the top problems we're seeing earlier, and these were actually the top 3 things here from those that we focused on and prioritized when creating this Delegates tool. First, xAPI and CMI5 support in your LMS. If your LMS doesn't have some way to play that type of content and store it in an LRS, then you'll have to depend on, the default reporting and analytics your LMS provides. Hard-coded credentials in your content. As I mentioned in a previous slide, this results in bad security practice, makes it even more difficult to update your content and distributing content. If you've ever needed to move your xAPI content through, let's say, various environments for testing before it goes to production, or if you've ever needed to deploy your content to multiple LMSs or to multiple clients, then you'll understand and appreciate this one, I think. And I want to point out, you don't have to replace or change your LMS, what we're saying here. So we've had some clients that they've had LMS vendors say, oh yeah, we're going to support xAPI. It's on the roadmap. And another year go by, and they never add support. So if you're tired of waiting, you can speed up your adoption now and just use this free tool. We've got a neat little trick that allows you to actually leverage your existing SCORM support in your LMS to play and track the xAPI content. And here's a few of the popular LMSs we've tested it with. So we also invite you to test it out with your own LMS. any conformant LMS and any conformant LRS. If your LMS supports SCORM 1.2, it will work. It should work just fine. You don't have to use our LRS either, and Rob will show that in a little bit here in the demo. We'd love to hear your feedback, how it works for you. Let me briefly cover how it works. So basically, you provide a URL path to where your content's hosted on a web server. You'll then be prompted to enter your LRS credentials. You'll download the delegate file, which is actually a SCORM zip package, and then you'll import that in your LMS. From there, your learners can launch your xAPI content, and your detailed xAPI data will be sent to your LRS. And while your kind of SCORM high-level data will be sent back to your LMS. So you get the learning data in both places. All right, now that I framed things a little bit, let's turn over to Rob. He'll show you how it works
All
with some
right.
different content examples. And then after showing a demo, we'll come back here and look at maybe a comparison of what you get here with delegates versus launch. Go ahead, Rob, take it away.
Yeah, I think I have to like send a screen share request or something. Hold on.
Okay.
So I sent a screen
Maybe
share
I need to
request.
stop sharing my screen.
Oh, I see. You got to stop. Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Okay, cool. I'm going to grab the entire screen one. All right, let's roll. Let me see how this goes. Um, okay. So just to kind of reiterate what problem we're solving here. Um, this comes up a lot for us, right? Because there's no easy answer for this. If you're in Articulate or you're in one of the authoring tools, you can publish to xAPI and you can put in some long-lived credentials, right? That works. You upload that package to your learning management system, and the learning management system doesn't get a completion because all the data goes to the external LRS, right? Um, for packages that support the tin can launch mechanism, okay, you can do xAPI to your LMS, and it will get completions correctly, right? But if they don't support some kind of statement forwarding, which often they don't, then now the data is trapped in there. You can't get it out. So the delegate is going to give us an answer to that, and it works pretty well. Y'all see my screen? Do you guys see that, Jason? Can you nod your head or something? It says,
Yeah,
okay,
let's see
cool,
xapi.io.
awesome. We were very fortunate to get a cool domain, xapi.io. Let me show you how this works. We have unzipped a CMI5 package onto like a bare web server. Now you'll notice if I just like browse to the URL, it doesn't work. You can't do that. You can't just like unzip a CMI5 package and put it on the internet. I want to note that I'm doing CMI5, but like a typical tin can, like xAPI export would work exactly the same, right? Um, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to xapi.io, put in the URL and hit test. All right. You'll see here it just kind of instantly says we automatically detected the xAPI object ID. What this site is going to do is it is going to try to load that content from that location, find its manifest file, which will be an XML file, and read out the configuration. If we can't get to the content, right? Like let me put a typo at the end here and test again. We're going to say we couldn't automatically detect it. This is a signal to you that something is wrong, right? There are some use cases where this would happen, like you have parked the content behind some kind of single sign-on or something. But generally, we expect that the browser I'm sitting in front of can reach out to that content so we can read those settings automatically. You'll see that this thing has automatically checked the use CMI5 checkbox. We can read that and we know that that's how that works. We need somewhere to send the data, right? So we've just taken a package, we've put it on the internet, just unzipped it somewhere. Let's make a new LRS. This is not an LRS demo. I'm not going to talk about it very much. I will go ahead and just kind of make myself a new LRS, no data in it, and create an access key. I'm going to make these credentials test and test. This should not be considered like a realistic case, right? You would keep those random identifiers, but I don't want to type them during my demo. So I'm going to make them test and test, okay? I'm going to take my endpoint and test, right? and put them in here. Now you notice I didn't actually type test. We're going to check, right? We're going to verify that your credentials are correct, and your credentials do need to be correct. And this, your LRS needs to be online and working correctly for this to work, right? Let's do test and test. Now when I hit download delegate, it's going to prompt me to go ahead and save this zip file. The name of the zip file is not relevant or important, but it is named with the title that either you gave us or we read automatically out of the manifest. All right. You'll notice if you look in the top corner there very quickly, this is a very small zip file. It's only 8 kilobytes. And that's because it is only the logic necessary to exercise the externalized playback engine that we host to make all this work. Let's go into Moodle. I happen to have a copy of Moodle because it's free and you can get one set up yourself and host it yourself. This works in any learning management system that supports SCORM 1.2. Okay, so that's important. One of the major use cases here is I want to do xAPI and my system just doesn't do anything but SCORM. I mean, this comes up for us in our business. That comes up a lot, right? Let's add to my course a new SCORM module, add an activity or resource. Every learning management system is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to set this up inside of Moodle, inside of Canvas, or inside of Docebo or whatever. There's a million different ways to do it, right? And I'm going to upload that 8 kilobyte package that I just downloaded, right? Nothing terribly exciting is happening here. Moodle has kind of a unique situation where you have to tell Moodle, hey, I want the course to be passed when the SCORM package is passed. A lot of learning management systems just assume that automatically. Moodle does not, at least this version of it. So I'm just going to tell it my completion criteria here. I hit save and return to course. As far as Moodle is concerned, this is a fairly normal piece of e-learning content, right? It just pops up in a pop-up window, just like you'd expect any kind of SCORM content to pop up. Let's run through it. You'll notice we're sticking a little powered by Veracity Launch in the corner. You'll also notice earlier, I just put the raw URL in the browser and you didn't see the e-learning content, right? Because the handshake didn't happen correctly. In this case, the handshake is happening correctly. Let me run through the content. The content of this content really isn't relevant here. We're talking about the plumbing, but let's take the quiz because that's important. I've done this a million times. I get an 80 every single time I do it because one of these is wrong and I don't know which, and it doesn't matter. So I'm going to answer all of my questions and I'm going to hit submit answers. I got an 80. All right, no big deal. I'll exit this and exit my activity inside of Moodle. And now something a little bit magical here has happened. It's magical in that nothing unusual happened at all, right? Look, I got an 80% in Moodle. So I just ran a CMI5 course that's hosted on a third-party domain, right, inside of Moodle, and I got my completion and I got my score. That's already kind of cool, right? Now you can distribute this delegate package to lots of different learning management systems, and the actual e-learning content is on that server I showed you earlier, where I just unzipped it, right? But you can distribute that to different places. They're all going to get the completions normally, even though it's cross-domain. On top of that, you'll remember earlier in this demo, which is turning out to be faster than I thought it would be, I made this new LRS, right? So this was a new empty LRS just a moment ago. If I come here, I'm going to find that I have xAPI statements from the admin user, right? The delegate reads from the learning management system the identity of the user. It handshakes with our servers to initiate CMI5 playback. It runs all that courseware just the way you would think. It then sends back to the hosting learning management system over SCORM the score, the duration, and the pass-fail criteria, right? And the completion criteria. And then it also sends to the LRS whose credentials I put in these boxes 5 minutes ago, all that xAPI data, including all of the clicking and looking at the slides and the answering of the questions, right? So this is pretty slick. I mean, it's so slick that you barely notice anything happening, right? Like it just kind of works exactly the way you think it would work. But there's a couple of cool things. We have the identity correct, right? the student both gets their data into some third-party data system, doesn't have to be our LRS, could be any xAPI conformant LRS, and they get the pass and the score inside their learning management system, which doesn't support CMI5, but just did it anyway. It doesn't even know it did it. On top of that, we add a little bit of extra flavor to the xAPI statements. I'm only showing this because I know this audience knows this stuff. We keep some interesting additional extensions on the delegate, so you can tell from which learning management system did this particular record come from, right? If you distribute this exact same file to lots of different learning management systems, you can come in here and aggregate it and say, I really only want to see performance information from this one, not this other, right? Now, of course, those completions are all in those disparate LMSs as well, but they all come together here, and then you can slice them by which LMS. Let me back up a little bit. So that's kind of it. This has really solved our plumbing problems for a lot of our different users, right? Like the data just kind of goes into the LMS, it goes into the LRS, it works just the way you'd expect it to work. It's a fairly seamless experience. The only thing you need to do is, of course, give us the link and the endpoints. Now, this site, xapi.io, let me stop for a second. How we doing? Everybody good? Can you like a thumbs up in the video? All right. This went quickly, right? But it works actually really smoothly. The xapi.io website is actually just kind of a front end to a system that we call Launch. Jason mentioned it earlier. One of the things that happens here is you just get the zip file from xapi.io. That's great. I mean, it's our intention to stay out of your way, right? You don't have to give us credentials or log in or sign up or anything. You just do it. That's great. That's kind of our gift to the community, right? We do stick our little logo in the bottom corner of your e-learning content, right? If you need more management, like you have given that zip file to some LMS, and now you need to make it not work anymore. You know, they didn't pay you or whatever. You need to turn it off. You need some management functionality, right? To get to that, you'll need to use the actual Launch product. Like I said, xap.io is just a very simple interface on top of the Launch engine. Let me show you that. The main website is golaunch.it. And like our LRS, it's a multi-tenant environment where you would make your own sort of portal. I'm going to go to our demo portal, which will look different. It's got its own theme, but that's okay. Oh, nope, that's LRS. Sorry, demo.golaunch.it. Here we go. Let me sign into this guy real quick. Do we know the creds? Let me single sign on into it. I guess this one. Here we go. Yeah. So inside of your portal on Launch, you have sort of a content management interface. I'm not going to belabor this. It's a very light learning management system, but I really want to just talk about the kind of delegate features in here and kind of content distribution features that are in here. When you upload e-learning content, now, if you need to make a delegate to a package and you don't have a place to host it, you can upload it to us. Like, we'll do it, right? Just go to upload SCORM xAPI and upload your zip right here, right? You could go to manual entry and kind of put like the playback URL in here. This is starting to be very similar to what we're doing inside of the xAPI.io, right? Is putting a link into externally hosted content. You can do that, but you know, one of the major reasons you might want to do this inside of the Launch portal is that you can just upload the files to us. You should be aware that, you know, those binary assets are then served by our infrastructure, which is hosted in Amazon. Regardless, once you have a content record in here, you would create a delegate to it. And this is what I mean when I say you have more management capabilities from here, right? Create delegate. Critically, there's a couple of settings in here that you can set. You can set at what point in time it becomes available, at what point in time it ceases being available. So if, you know, you give this zip file to your content to some other learning management system to play, you can like license to for give them like 1 year. And after 1 year, it's going to stop working, you know? You can set a limit of launches. After a certain number of launches, that content will no longer play back. And critically, you can control the web origins from which the delegate must be hosted. So I showed you earlier inside of the real demo, one of these extensions that we were tagging on the xAPI data was the referrer. We'll match that against the tags that you give us here, right? MoodleCloud.com is in my autocomplete, right? Um, and if you if someone sends that delegate package to their friend to put in their learning management system, it's not going to work, right? Um, you can choose to control that. If you don't enter one, then it doesn't do anything at all. Now, in keeping with the kind of management, if you go to show delegates, we'll also kind of give you a list of all of the different delegates. Actually, this is the only delegate for cybersecurity work. We haven't done that. Let me just do all delegates. Here we go. And you can see this particular package has been launched 185 times. Inside of the larger launch interface, not from xAPI.io, but inside the larger launch interface, there's really nothing that prevents you from making multiple different delegates to the same hosted content. And then distributing those to different people. Maybe you want to give LMSA 1,000 launches, LMSB 1,000 launches. You give them each their own delegate, right? Rather than share the same delegate file, which would then share the same quotas. Additionally, inside of Launch, there's a couple more xAPI routing options. Again, here, each time you upload the pack, or each time you kind of create the delegate, create the link, you give us the creds, right? As with many things inside the Launch interface, there's a little bit more complexity. Each different content record can be associated with its own LRS, right? LRS settings. You just put your creds in there. Or you can do sort of a platform level integration, meaning that all of the content that is played from this particular portal inside of Launch, right? You go to a management, LRS and xAPI integration, create an LRS integration. This is where you would say all the data from all of my delegates or any other way that Launch was used to play content, all of that data should go to this one particular LRS. This one's already hooked up to the Veracity demo LRS. So that's most of what we want to say about delegates. It is a solution that you can use to get xAPI, tin can, CMI5 content to play in a learning management system that doesn't support it. You can also use it to play xAPI content in a learning management system that says they support xAPI, but then swallows all the data and doesn't give you any way to get it out, right? You can also use a delegate to sort of exfiltrate that data from the learning management system in a way that the LMS really has no control over, no ability to prevent, right? Finally, you don't have to do CMI5 or xAPI. You can make a delegate to a SCORM package, right? You would upload the SCORM package to us. Here, manage content, add content, upload the SCORM package to us, get a delegate to it, and it all works the same way, right? One of the beauties of this is that you don't have to think a whole lot about the e-learning format anymore. You just kind of give it to us and let us worry about it, right? We'll give you a SCORM 1.2 package. It's all going to work. So I don't know, Jason, did I miss any important concepts here? There's a lot more to the launch server, but I really just want to talk about the delegates today.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, it's important to have those differentiators because there are a lot of other things you could do with Launch. But I mean, to get started and to get people to be able to play their content in LMSs, you could just use delegates, the xAPI to get started. But I think that was cool that you just showed it too. Being able to send xAPI data to more than one LRS from the delegate and Launch. We've had a lot of people ask for that, which is kind of cool because you may want to send data to more than one place. So you could do it at the whole portal level like you showed, or you could do it at the individual content level. And then like you just mentioned, I think besides CMI5 and xAPI, you could also make a delegate for PDF or videos or
Sure,
even
sure.
SCORM. It's kind of a
Um,
universal content player.
yeah, yeah. One other thing I should note is quotas. Veracity is committed to kind of having a lot of valuable freemium services, right? Like you can always go to make an LRS and LRSIO anytime you want to. we barely keep track of that thing, right? We want to make sure that this is something people can do and get to. So xAPI.io is totally free to use, doesn't require any credentials, doesn't require any registration. The only caveat is we're going to stick our logo in the bottom corner of your e-learning content, and I think we're only going to launch it 10,000 times. So like for a major production use case, you'd have to call us. But otherwise, we encourage you to use xAPI.io as sort of your content bridge because I think it's pretty useful and it should solve, solves a real problem for people who have that problem, right? Which comes up in our business a lot. So I'll leave it at that. But we got about 15 minutes, I think. Should we take some questions? Let me look in the chat, see if there's anything we should talk about.
Yeah, that sounds good. While Rob's doing that, I'll go back and pull up my screen here just to highlight again those kind of different. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
We can see
Okay,
it.
sorry, I'm not used to Zoom. Kind of switches on me. So just to highlight again, kind of the free Delegates version versus what you get with Launch. Launch is a more fully developed product. You don't have to have a login into Delegates. You can simply, like Rob said, you go out and create your LRS credentials and whatever LRS you want, put a path to your content, and we give you that file. And we use the Launch's playback engine to take care of it. As Rob pointed out, there are some differences in the usage and the limits. You get 1,000 launches. With Delegates, you have a little bit more control over that with Launch. Also, something to point out, Delegates requires you to go set this up on your own web server. You got to host the content somewhere where you can with a Launch, you can upload it. So it's kind of a prerequisite and something important to point out. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, Jason, let me just there was a question in the chat earlier about cross origin, right?
Oh.
Which is a good question. And that plays in a little bit because it's possible to do cross origin playback of CMI5 and xAPI, which is kind of how this works. If you wanted to make a delegate to SCORM, we have to host the SCORM package because we're the actual player, and SCORM can't be done cross origin, right? So that's just something to think about.
Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah, that is one of the old security limitations of SCORM. It's just kind of can't do anything about. And another thing to point out, Launch, as Rob went through, we have both a SaaS and on-premises version, although it's not really advertised yet on our site. So if you had the need to host Launch on your own servers, we have that option as well. Anything else? I think that was really, really it here on these. I'll leave our time for questions. Did you see anything else in the chat we should cover? I tried to answer a few of those while you were.
I saw a couple. Yeah, thanks, Jason. Let me read real quick.
I think I know the answer to this. But do you mind if I ask my own question?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Let me answer David.
Yeah.
Who in the chat here. After some time, can you forward to another LRS? Yes. Launch will kind of journal all the xAPI data. You can give us creds later and then push all of the data up. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Go on.
Okay. Now I'm digesting that answer, but I'm going to go back to my first question, which is, so you guys are you touching the data at all as it goes through? It's not, is it hitting your servers or is it just going by? Okay.
Yeah, no, this does, I mean, that's why we have some usage limits on the free content, on the free services, because our servers are like deeply integrated in making all this work.
Right.
Yeah. We also, you'll notice actually, I'm not sharing my screen. I showed you earlier that we had appended some extensions to the xAPI statement. We do a fair bit of like data quality stuff to the xAPI as it transmits through the Launch servers. For instance, it's technically possible for an e-learning package to kind of just ignore the LMS's identity and like make up its own, or just like use some hard-coded one or what. We're gonna fix that. Like the identity that we get from SCORM when the e-learning package sends xAPI, we're gonna kind of check the identity of the xAPI statement against the identity that came from the LMS via SCORM and make sure that they're the same. And there's like a variety of data quality things that we'll do to clean up what is otherwise sort of messy or difficult to digest xAPI. How do I say it? it's necessary. Like we've been doing this for 10 years now. Like this is a good idea, you know?
Yep. Yep.
That is important to note that the data is kind of in launch, right? And the xAPI data is in launch. But if you want to do something with it, you got to give us creds to an upstream LRS. It's
Mhm.
technically possible for you to make a delegate to content that we host in launch and then just never push the resulting performance information anywhere. It just kind of builds up inside the launch server. You could eventually get it back, right? But the intention is that you would sort of proxy it in real time out to an LRS, via the creds I showed you. You don't have to, but that's how we intended you to do it.
Okay.
Any other questions in there we should answer that you saw that we can't?
Um, I think good.
Saw one about vibe coding. Why wouldn't you just vibe? Everybody's on this vibe coding angle now. Like we can vibe. I know you've done a lot of vibe coding, Rob,
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
I mean, my personal thought is like, yeah, I mean, if you were Rob, an engineer like Rob, or maybe Rusty Software, someone that knows these standards really well, you could tell these, you could maybe vibe code something, but like you got scalability, you've got conformance, and all these like little idiosyncrasies inside the standards that are probably going to result
Look,
in some errors. But I don't know. You have any
but
thoughts on that?
yeah, from a professional software engineer who is looking at these vibe coding tools and wondering like, all right, well, it's a good thing I'm got other skills, right? Because like, what am I gonna do? My experience with them thus far has been, yeah, but you got to know what you want to code, right? Um, it kind of turns out that like typing the code was never the hard part, right? Maybe in your first couple of years, right? But like knowing what to code, um, I have not had a lot of luck having these tools tell me what to do, right? I'll tell them, I want you to type this, I want you to code this, I want you to code this, and they'll do it. But I've not had a lot of luck telling them to like solve my problem. I need you to find a way to get the xAPI data from this system to this. And they do nothing. If I tell it, write a function that uses, LTI to blah, 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 and I know exactly what I want it to do, that'll work. I haven't been able to get these vibe code tools to do much good xAPI, right? I think that our industry is small compared to like the web front end interface. It does a pretty great job of like making web front ends. I'm not entirely sure that the data tracking is ready. Now that being said, like this stuff is like what, like 3 years old, so who knows? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a big topic, right? Like is vibe coding going to put us all out of work? I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, great.
Good question. No, I'm gonna answer James Perry's question. Do you still need an LMS to handle enrollments? Um, you don't have to. I mean, the launch server is a very light LMS, and it does include the concept of enrollment. You can create a user account, let them log in, assign them content, right? And then they'll see it. So you don't necessarily need to use an LMS. Like I said, I'm really talking about the kind of content syndication, like format interchange functionality, unless our built-in LMS-like functionality today. But you could use Launch. It does have
and
an enrollment layer.
and Launch has an API too, so you could actually
Hmm.
build like a headless solution, right?
That's a great, yeah. So Launch does include a playback API, meaning that you can, if you have like like a portal, like I can't say the names we were talking to, but just imagine you have some website that tells you all about your car insurance, and then you want to have a little button on that website that plays SCORM course, and then that website needs to know that you passed the SCORM course. You essentially need to add SCORM support to an existing web property. We have an API that will do that. So each launch tenant gets its own API, and there's even a nice example project that shows you how to take sort of a random website and add xAPI or SCORM playback to it using our APIs. So yeah, that's something that we can do.
Thanks, gents.
Any others?
Uh,
Meg, did you
yeah,
have anything
well,
or Matt?
let's take David has another question. We'll take it offline, David, because we gotta start wrapping. But let me make sure that we write that down and get back to him. Okay, Jason.
Yep.
Well, thank you both so much. I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing with us about delegates and a little peek at launch as well, and the additional functionality that you can get for delegates when you use launch. I don't know what more to say, but like, thank you for your time. Thank you for showing us this super cool tool. I'm already like coming up with projects that are in my pipeline that I'm like, oh, maybe we could use it for that. Oh, maybe over there. So I hope other people are inspired and getting ideas as well. So
Awesome.
we hope to
Thank
see
you
you
for having
all
us.
next week as well for our next Lit Spotlight session at 4 p.m. next Thursday. And until then, everybody stay safe and take care of yourselves.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.